This innocent-looking substance reshaped the world more than any precious metal, sparked revolutions, and built some of history's greatest fortunes. But it also became the foundation of humanity's darkest chapter. This is the story of sugar, the sweet commodity that literally built empires. What if I told you that the sugar in your coffee this morning connects you to a 1,000-year-old story of exploration, exploitation, innovation, and empire? From ancient New Guinea to modern Brazil, sugarcane didn't just satisfy humanity's sweet tooth, it fundamentally altered the course of civilization itself. Today, we're exploring how a humble grass from the Pacific changed everything: economics, politics, technology, and tragically, the lives of millions. Welcome to the untold story of sugar's global domination. Our story begins around 8000 BCE in the highlands of New Guinea, where indigenous peoples first discovered that this tall grass, what we now call sugarcane, contained something extraordinary. Unlike fruits that offered temporary sweetness, sugarcane could be processed, concentrated, and preserved. For thousands of years, sugar remained a closely guarded secret of Southeast Asia and India. Ancient Sanskrit texts called it shakara, the origin of our word sugar. But it was the Islamic Golden Age that first recognized sugar's true potential. By 700 CE, Arab traders and scholars had perfected sugar refining techniques that wouldn't be matched in Europe for centuries. They established sugar plantations across the Mediterranean, in Cyprus, Sicily, and southern Spain. But this was just the beginning. Europeans were about to discover sugar, and nothing would ever be the same. When European crusaders first tasted sugar in the 11th century, they called it white gold. Back home, honey was the only sweetener most people knew. Sugar was so rare and expensive that it was literally kept in locked boxes alongside other precious spices. But Europe's elite couldn't get enough. By the 1400s, Venice had become the sugar capital of Europe, importing tons from the eastern Mediterranean. Wealthy merchants displayed elaborate sugar sculptures at banquets, the ultimate status symbol. The demand was insatiable, but the supply was limited. Then came the breakthrough that changed everything. Portuguese colonizers discovered that Atlantic islands like Madeira and the Canaries could grow sugarcane beautifully. But these small islands couldn't satisfy Europe's growing addiction. Europeans needed something bigger, much bigger. When Columbus brought sugarcane to the Caribbean in 1493, he unleashed forces that would reshape 3 continents. The Caribbean islands were perfect, warm, humid, and seemingly endless. But there was one problem: who would do the backbreaking work? This is where sugar's story becomes inseparable from one of humanity's greatest tragedies. European colonizers first tried to enslave indigenous populations, but diseases brought by Europeans decimated native communities. Their solution was horrific: the Atlantic slave trade. Between 1500 and 1850, approximately 12.5 million Africans were forcibly transported to the Americas. Of these, roughly 40%, nearly 5 million people, were destined for sugar plantations. The wealth generated by their unpaid labor didn't just enrich plantation owners. It financed the rise of entire cities: Liverpool, Bristol, New York, and countless others. Sugar became the foundation of the first truly global economy. British sugar colonies in the Caribbean were generating more wealth than all of North America combined. A single Jamaican plantation could be worth more than an entire English county. Sugar didn't just fuel empires, it helped create the modern world. The profits from sugar plantations provided much of the capital that financed the Industrial Revolution. Liverpool's sugar merchants invested their fortunes in textile mills, steam engines, and railways. But sugar also drove technological innovation directly. The need to process massive quantities of cane led to advances in machinery, chemistry, and logistics. Sugar refineries were among the world's first large-scale industrial operations. Meanwhile, sugar became central to the fight for human freedom. The abolition movement gained momentum partly through sugar boycotts. When British consumers refused to buy slave-produced sugar, it hit plantation owners where it hurt most: their profits. The Napoleonic Wars created another revolution. When Britain blockaded European ports, cutting off Caribbean sugar, Europeans desperately sought alternatives. They found it in an unlikely place: the humble sugar beet. Suddenly, Europe could produce its own sugar, beginning to break the Caribbean monopoly. Today's sugar industry would be unrecognizable to those early plantation owners, yet in many ways, the patterns persist. Brazil now produces more sugar than any other country, followed by India and China. The global sugar trade is worth over $50 billion annually. But here's what's remarkable. While our ancestors consumed perhaps 4 pounds of sugar per year, the average American now consumes over 150 pounds annually. Sugar isn't just in obvious places like candy and soda. It's hidden in bread, sauce, and countless processed foods. This abundance has created new challenges. The same substance that once represented luxury and power now contributes to global health crises. Diabetes, obesity, and heart disease affect hundreds of millions worldwide. And the environmental impact is staggering. Sugar production consumes vast amounts of water and land. In Brazil, sugarcane cultivation has contributed to Amazon deforestation, while in other regions, it competes with food crops for fertile soil. Sugar's legacy extends far beyond economics and health. The plantation system created social hierarchies that persist today throughout the Americas. Many of the world's most unequal societies are former sugar colonies. But sugar also created rich cultural fusions. Caribbean music, cuisine, and traditions emerge from the blending of African, European, and indigenous influences in the sugar colonies. Jazz, reggae, salsa, all have roots in the cultural mixing that sugar plantations, however tragically, brought about. Visual, modern fair trade imagery, sustainable farming. Today, there are efforts to make sugar production more ethical and sustainable. Fair trade certification, improved labor standards, and environmental protections represent attempts to address sugar's problematic legacy. The verse. Conclusion: 11:30, 12:15. Visual: sugar crystals dissolving in water, symbolic imagery. Narrator: so the next time you add sugar to your coffee or bite into something sweet, remember, you're participating in a story that spans continents and centuries. Sugar built fortunes and financed empires, but it also fueled some of humanity's greatest injustices. Visual: montage of key historical moments. From ancient New Guinea to modern Brazil, from medieval Venice to industrial Liverpool, sugar has been far more than just a sweetener. It's been a driver of exploration, a catalyst for technological innovation, a foundation of global capitalism, and tragically, a justification for human enslavement. Visual: call to action graphics. Understanding sugar's history helps us make better choices about our food, our health, and our world. Because the sweetest victories are often built on the most bitter truths. Visual end screen with related videos, subscribe button. What surprised you most about sugar's global impact? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about how everyday items shaped our world.